Welcome back, everyone. Glad to have you here today in the second part of this video series. And basically, we are going to start our discussion around the PHY layer frame format. We have four types of frames: HE single user PPDU. PPDU stands for PLCP Protocol Data Unit, and it's the naming convention that refers to the Wi-Fi frame at a physical layer or layer 1. The second frame type is HE single user but with extended range functionality or capability. Mainly this one targets HE operation in outdoor environments. The third type is the multi-user transmission in downlink, as well as the last one is also a multi-user transmission or multi-user frame, but in the uplink direction. Okay, let's have a quick look at the frame format. So basically, according to the coloring scheme that I used here, the orange part of the format has fields that refers to the legacy part of the preamble or the PHY header, whereas the blue part refers to the 11AX or HE part of the transmissions. Basically, the legacy part is used for backward compatibility as well as for protection for 11AX transmissions and to avoid having them collide with, let's say, earlier 11AC or 11AN devices. As we know, actually, 11AX is expected to run in both 2.4, 5 gigahertz, as well as the 6 gigahertz band. So the addition of the legacy preamble is expected to exist actually only in the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands. For the 6 gigahertz, up to my knowledge, we don't have any Wi-Fi chipset that used to run in the 6 gigahertz band. But if there is already a type of devices that are using the 6 gigahertz bands, then for sure we have to add legacy part to help protect 11AX transmissions and help those legacy devices to actually understand more information about the ongoing transmissions in order to decide whether to defer their turns or transmit right now. I don't want to confirm my answer about 11AX frame format in the 6 gigahertz band because honestly I didn't study the HE operation in the 6 gigahertz band, but maybe in the future once I have more details I would share them in a separate video. Now let's dig deeper into each field inside the frame and the purpose of each one. So legacy short training field and legacy long training field, both fields are used in order to sync the transmitter with the receiver. The legacy signal field is the most important one. It is used mainly by legacy devices to read the data rate as well as the length of the frame. By those information, we can decode the duration of the frame, and thus we can update the legacy devices nav timers and defer the transmissions until the ongoing 11AX transmissions finalize. Now we move to the HE part of the PHY preamble. Basically, the PHY started with a copy of the legacy signal field. The R refers here to repeated legacy signal field, and it's mainly used to recover frames in case we have high interference situations. Honestly, I don't have much information about how that is done. Maybe in the future, once I have more details, I could share. The other field is HE signal A field. And this is a mandatory one. It contains very important information about HE operation, such as the MCS, the bandwidth for the channel, whether I think it's 20 megahertz or 40, etc. The number of spatial streams used for the transmission, the BSS color, which is something that we are going to talk a lot in this series. Also, the spatial reuse, which is related to the BSS color. Moreover, we have information about the duration of the current transmit opportunity, as well as if the transmission is going in the uplink or in the downlink direction. The HE-SIG-B is actually an optional field. It doesn't have to exist in any single user transmission, whether it's uplink or downlink, as well as for uplink multi-user transmissions. But it is mandatory to exist in the downlink multi-user transmissions. Basically, it contains two main info. The first one is common information related to OFDMA, resource allocations. OFDMA is a very important topic in 11AX, and we will talk a lot about OFDMA later on. The per user info within the multi-user transmission is also very important, because assume we have two users, then we have to define the frequency allocations for each one, as well as the MCS used in order to transmit data to that user, the number of spatial streams, etc. Why is that important? Because in the downlink direction, you might have, let's say, two users. One is close, for example, to the access point, and the other at the edge of the cell. So the access point might use different, let's call it like this, transmit parameters in order to deliver data to these two clients. The other two fields are similar to STF and LTF, but they have different functionality related to MIMO. And MIMO is actually a form of antenna diversity. We will talk about this later, but basically the short training field is used to estimate the automatic gain control in a MIMO transmission, as well as the LTF part is used by receivers to estimate the MIMO channels by the previous transmissions. Also here, notice that we might have one LTF or two LTFs, all the way up to having a maximum of 8 LTFs. Basically, 11AX supports up to 8 MIMO or 8 antennas. So based on the number of antennas used in the MIMO operation, you would expect to see the same number of LTF fields in the frame format. The last part is the HE data, which is the actual data to be transmitted uplink or downlink. Okay, that's it on the frame format. Let's clear things up and move to the next section. Okay, let us have a quick comparison between Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 5. So in terms of the frequency band that each standard uses, 11AC used to run in 5 gigahertz only, whereas 11AX runs in both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, as well as the new 6 gigahertz. In terms of modulation, modulation used in 11AC is 256 QAM, whereas 1024 QAM in 11AX. And just let's get back to Wi-Fi 101. Modulation is a method of adjusting the signal to create a carrier signal and define the number of bits used or transmitted in each symbol. Basically here 256 equals to 2 to the power 8. That means we can have up to 8 bits per symbol. Same case here, 2 to the power 10 refers to the fact that we can have 10 bits per symbol. Now, in terms of symbol duration, before we have the comparison, let's define what a symbol is. It is basically the actual modulated data bits to be transmitted. So the symbol duration, it is the time frame used to transmit that symbol. Basically, it is a 3.2 microsecond, and we add to that an immunity period. It's called guard interval. It is either a long or short interval of 800 nanoseconds or 400 nanoseconds. Now, this number in 11AC has been quadrupled. We also add the guard interval into the number. Now, for the guard interval, it is the interval that or the period of time that is inserted between symbol transmissions in order to, let's say, defend against multipath interference as well as inter-symbol interference. The numbers used for the guard intervals in 11AC differ from those in 11AX. In terms of subcarrier spacing, in 11AC we used 312.5 kilohertz, and in 11AC or 11AX we used 1/4 that number. I want you to notice this for now, and we will explain later how these numbers are derived, because here we multiplied by 4, here we divided by 4. Same case goes for the subcarriers count within 20 megahertz channel. Here we started with 64, whereas in 11AX we started with 4 times this number. Notice here we multiply by 4, here we divide by 4, here we actually also multiply by 4. I will explain the relation later. So basically, I just want to point out here that out of the 64, we use 52 for data transmissions, 4 for pilot, and the other 8 subcarriers are reserved, or the remaining are reserved. Same numbering we have here, but I don't memorize them honestly. And now in terms of MIMO, which is a form of antenna diversity. In 11AC, we used 8 antenna for MIMO operations. Same case here, so we don't have a difference between 11AC and 11AX. In terms of the maximum supported data rates that 11AC achieves is around 7 gigabit per second, whereas here it's 9.6. We would expect, I think, an improvement of 30%, of up to 30%. And now, when we talk about channel access methods, prior 11AX, we used Sigma CA to coordinate the channel access function. Now, in 11AC, we borrowed functionality or OFDMA functionality from LTE protocol, which will run over Sigma CA. Same case for the random channel access function. In 11AC or earlier, we used DCF and EDCF. This one was used when we introduced QoS to the Wi-Fi. Whereas in 11AX, we will also use OFDMA over Sigma CA. We will discuss those in details in the OFDM section. In terms of multi-user technologies, in 11AC, we use multi-user MIMO. In 11AN, we use MIMO. Whereas in 11AX, we use also MU MIMO. OFDMA by itself, it is a multi-user technology used to multiplex multi-users within a channel. So we use that, and we have the benefit of combining both multi-user MIMO and OFDMA to come up with the best of both worlds. We will show that also later on in the slides. In terms of multi-user transmission direction, only downlink direction was defined in 11AC. Uplink direction, uplink multi-user transmission was there, but it was optional. I don't know if any vendors implemented that. I didn't read about that before, but now in 11AC, or sorry, in 11AX or Wi-Fi 6, we have both directions already defined. In terms of aggregation, we use both aggregation methods in the two standards. However, here no fragmentation is applicable, whereas we have this functionality in 11AX. In terms of protections against legacy devices, we use NAV, prior 11AX, as well as RTS CTS. Here we use actually dual NAV, or it is called two NAVs operation. And I think we have a special trigger frame is called a multi-user RTS. We will see if we are going to discuss or talk about this or not. The last part here is related to the power management. Prior 11AX, we used many methods like the legacy one, the WMM power save method, the unscheduled and scheduled automated power save delivery, VHT transmit opportunity, which is mainly used in 11AC. And now in 11AX, we expect to have an enhanced functionality called enhanced target wait time, as well as enhanced micro sleep. Okay, so that's it about the comparison. And let's stop here in this part and see you in the next part.